What if I told you that even after years of silence, touch can return, and when it does, it brings back far more than just physical connection? It brings life, it brings breath, it brings memory. I've seen it happen. I've seen two people in their 70s who hadn't touched in a decade cry into each other's shoulders after the first gentle embrace. And I've seen widows, widowers, and those who once gave up on love feel the pulse of something return inside them. And they whispered the same words, "I didn't know I still needed this." My name is Dr. Edward. For over 30 years, I've worked with thousands of older adults, men and women alike, helping them restore their energy, strengthen their bodies, and maintain mental clarity and resilience at every stage of later life. But there's one part of health no one talks about enough: intimacy, real, human connection. And even if it's been years or decades, it's never too late to bring it back. Today, I'll walk you through 3 quiet doorways that can reopen the path to intimacy after 60. They don't require you to jump into romance. They don't require you to perform, but they do require something else, something more honest: the courage to come home to yourself. In this video, we'll explore how to reconnect with your body, even if you've ignored it for years. We'll talk about how to approach a partner, or even a new connection, without fear or shame. And finally, we'll talk about the small daily rituals that reignite warmth, not in the bedroom, but in the heart, because intimacy doesn't begin in the body. It begins in how we feel about ourselves, our stories, our scars. But before we begin, I want to ask you something gently. When was the last time you truly felt comfortable in your own skin? Not just when you looked in the mirror, but when you were alone, late at night, no audience, no pressure, just you, breathing, existing. So many of us have stopped touching our own bodies, stopped acknowledging the sacredness of our skin, our breath, our chest rising and falling. So let's start there. Before we reach for someone else, we must return to ourselves. That brings me to the first doorway. A patient of mine, Sylvia, once told me, "I haven't felt sensual in 20 years. It's like that part of me just went cold." She was 68 when she said that, widowed, living alone. She was healthy, active, but admitted something most people never dare to say aloud. "It's not that I don't want it, it's that I don't remember how." And I understood, because so often, intimacy fades not because we lose desire, but because we lose practice. I gave Sylvia one assignment. Each night, before sleep, she would spend 5 minutes with her own body, not with shame, not with judgment, just simple, respectful touch, her hands on her heart, her shoulders, her arms. The kind of gesture you'd give to a child afraid of the dark. "Tell your body," I said, "that it's safe to be seen again." She cried the first time, but within 2 weeks, her entire posture changed. She smiled more. She called old friends, and then she joined a music class. "It's not about finding someone," she told me later. "It's about remembering that I'm still alive." That's the first doorway, reawakening self-touch, not as something taboo, but as something sacred. If you cannot offer tenderness to your own skin, how can you ever welcome it from another? If you're still watching, then something inside you is listening. That part of you that hasn't given up, that part that still believes in warmth, in connection, in the return of closeness, not just as a memory, but as a real possibility. Next, we'll explore the second doorway, and it involves the hardest step of all: letting someone in again, even if just a little. He sat across from me with hands folded tight, eyes downcast, and a voice so quiet I could barely hear him. "I don't even know how to start," he said. His name was Glenn. He was 72, a kind, thoughtful man who had outlived 2 partners, one by cancer, one by time. "It's not that I don't want companionship again," he whispered. "I just don't want to be hurt, or worse, rejected." That's the second doorway, the one we all know, but so few want to open: letting someone in again. And it's not just about romance or physical touch. It's about vulnerability, the kind that requires us to risk not being seen the way we once were, to show up, body and soul, knowing that things aren't as firm, as smooth, or as spontaneous as they used to be, but still showing up anyway. With Glenn, we didn't talk about dating right away. We talked about conversation, presence, eye contact. I encouraged him to attend a book club at the senior center, not because of the books, but because of the chairs. They were arranged in a circle, and you couldn't help but look into someone else's eyes. That alone was enough. 2 months later, he told me, I had coffee with someone after group. Nothing romantic, just warm. He smiled when he said that word, warm, as if he hadn't used it in years. You see, the body may age, but the nervous system still craves connection. When we engage with others gently, consistently, and without the pressure of performance, our biology responds. Dopamine rises, stress hormones fall, skin warms, sleep improves, and slowly, we remember how to be touched by presence alone, even without hands. But here's the thing I need you to hear. The fear you feel around connection is not weakness. It's evidence of your strength. Because only those who've lived long, who've loved hard, who've lost deeply, only they know what it truly costs to open up again. And still, many do. One of the most powerful stories I ever witnessed was between a couple in their late 70s, married young, estranged for over a decade, living like roommates, silent and stiff. The wife, Marianne, came to see me alone first. She said, I still love him, but I think he stopped loving me years ago. Later, her husband came in too. When I asked why he'd never tried to hold her hand again, he simply said, because I didn't think she wanted me anymore. Two people, in love, sitting 10 feet apart for 10 years because of one unspoken fear. We did something simple. I asked them to sit beside each other, not to touch, just to breathe. 1 minute a day, eyes closed, nothing forced, nothing expected. After a week, she reached for his hand. A week later, he rested his hand on her shoulder. And 1 month after that, they began to slow dance in the kitchen again. No music, just movement. So if you've spent years believing that it's too late, that no one will want you, or that the moment has passed, please hear me. It hasn't. It may not look like it did at 30, but at 60, 70, 80, it might mean even more. And if you're still watching, thank you. That means something inside you still wants to believe in warmth. You've passed through the hardest doorways, coming home to yourself and beginning to let someone in. There's one more, the third and final doorway, and it's perhaps the most beautiful and most neglected one of all. Let me take you to a small garden in the back of a care home I visit monthly. There's a woman named Rose. She's 85, never married, no children. I've never known romance, she told me once, but I've known deep intimacy. I asked her what she meant, and she said this: every day, I take care of this garden. I talk to the flowers. I brush my fingers against the leaves. I smile at the sun. It touches me back. Rose reminded me that intimacy doesn't always come in human form. Sometimes, it's in the way we pour tea slowly, or how we wrap a shawl around our shoulders with care, or how we light a candle before bed and thank our body for still being here. I often ask my patients, where in your day do you move slowly enough to feel? That's the third doorway, reclaiming slowness, ritual, softness, not as chores, but as chances to be present with your body and your spirit, to bathe not just for hygiene, but for comfort, to eat not just for fuel, but for sensation. These small moments create the space in which intimacy, real, lasting intimacy, can return. And when it does, it doesn't rush in. It trickles, it unfolds. It grows stronger, not with force, but with permission. So if you've made it here through all three doorways, please know you are not broken, you are not late, you are becoming In the next part, I'll show you how to deepen these practices day by day and how to communicate your needs and boundaries without shame, because bringing back intimacy after 60 isn't about reigniting youth. It's about stepping fully into the wisdom, grace, and tenderness that only time can teach. By now, you might be thinking, "Doctor, I want this, but how do I actually start?" That's the question I hear the most, because bringing intimacy back into your life is one thing, but expressing that desire to someone else, that's where fear often holds us back. Let me tell you about Janice and her second husband, Peter. They were both in their early 70s, married for just 3 years. After both had been widowed, in public, they held hands and laughed easily. But in private, Janice confessed to me something that surprised even her. "I don't know how to tell him what I need. I feel embarrassed, like I'm asking for too much." But she wasn't. What she was asking for was the most human thing of all: to be seen, held, touched, not out of obligation, but out of connection. The problem wasn't lack of love, it was lack of language. So I gave her something small to begin with, a phrase she could use, simple, soft, and true. She told Peter one evening, "I miss your closeness. Could we find a way to just sit together more? No talk of sex, no pressure, just presence." And that night, they sat in silence, hands touching, shoulders brushing, and it was more than enough. For the first time in months, she slept deeply because her heart no longer felt alone. So if you're wondering how to begin this conversation, start with something that names what you feel, not what you fear. Say, "I miss warmth," or "I want to feel close again," or simply, "Can we take some time to just hold hands today?" You don't need perfect words, you only need honest ones. Because the more we name our need without shame, the more we open the door for someone else to meet us there. And if you're alone, truly alone, please know this part still matters. Because you can begin the same conversation with your own body. Speak gently to yourself. Whisper kindness. Sit with your own presence as you would with someone you love. Your nervous system doesn't need another person to feel safe. It only needs attention, softness, and time. Now, let's talk about consistency. One of the biggest myths is that intimacy needs to be grand, dramatic, or spontaneous to be meaningful. That's not true. What your body craves most after 60 is rhythm. When I worked with Dennis and Lila, a couple in their late 60s, they told me they'd given up on intimacy years ago, not because they didn't love each other, but because life got in the way, grandkids, schedules, medications, fatigue. So we made a small plan. Every Sunday morning, before breakfast, they'd sit beside each other, touch hands, and ask one question: "What helped you feel loved this week?" It changed everything. Not overnight, but slowly. They began to laugh more, to reach for each other in the kitchen, to touch shoulders when passing in the hallway. And a few months later, intimacy returned, not just physically, but emotionally. "We feel young again," they told me. "Not because we act young, but because we feel connected." That's the power of rhythm, not in big gestures, but in daily return, like a breath, like a tide, like a heartbeat that never stops trying. And one more thing I need you to remember. You are worthy, even if your body has changed, even if you feel unsure, even if you've forgotten what it means to be touched without expectation. Your skin is still sacred. Your presence still matters. And the longing you feel, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's your body remembering the language of closeness and quietly asking you to speak it again. So here's how you can begin today. Before you sleep, sit still for a few minutes. Place one hand on your heart, the other on your belly. Breathe slowly. Feel your body breathing back. Whisper a message of welcome, not to anyone else, just to yourself. Something like, "You're still here, and that's enough." Then tomorrow, take one step towards someone else. It doesn't have to be intimate, just human. A kind word, a longer hug, a shared moment of eye contact. Every one of those small steps rewires your nervous system. It rebuilds the bridge, and with time, it invites real, lasting connection. If you've made it here, reading every word, then you're already further along this journey than most. You've dared to hope again, you've let your body whisper back its truth, and you've remembered what most people forget. That intimacy after 60 isn't about going backward. It's about becoming whole. Now, in the next video, we'll go deeper. I'll walk you through specific exercises, emotional, physical, relational, that help rebuild trust in touch. Whether you're with a partner or on your own, these practices will teach your body that it's safe to feel again, that it's worthy of warmth, and that it's never too late to come home to connection. But for now, let me leave you with this. The parts of you that crave closeness aren't leftovers from youth. They are proof you're still alive, still open, still human, and that is something to honor, not hide.